Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to the Burgundy Gold Knuckleheads podcast. And as always, and especially today, sitting over there with a big old smile on his face after a Washington Commanders win is my main man, Reggie. What's going on, Reg?
Man, you crack me up, man.
Out there.
The music, I don't know why, but the music seemed a little extra loud today.
Did it?
After victory, you were pumping it up, man. You had a little extra zest in the intro, and
absolutely.
It's victory, man. It's a victory. We're doing this podcast post Washington Commanders going into the Mile House City and grabbing a dub, man. Hey, it was great. It's great, man. I don't know what to say, but other than wow. I said we'd be 2-0, and we're 2-0, man. So I'm excited. This is what?
This is a game of a lot of ups and downs and highs and lows, and we'll touch base on some of it. We're not going to make a super long podcast here, but we just kind of want to touch on a few things as we watch the game.
Well, first, let's start off, man. This is the first time we're 2-0 since 2011.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we talked about that, and so long ago that many of us didn't even know who the quarterback was, but we had to search it, and the Googling machine said that it was Rex Grossman. I forgot that guy was even our quarterback. But yeah, Rex Grossman was the last time that our team had a 2-0 start in 2011.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that don't even realize that Rex Grossman. It's Rex who?
What? Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. And then you say the name, like, what team did he play for? Well, he was here for just a minute, but yeah, it's been a while. It feels good. It feels good. Washington walked away, limped away, jumped up and down as they walked away with a 35-33 win. As I always say, I tell people at the sports bar, and I've said it here, we cannot win comfortably.
No, we never.
We had an opportunity. We had an opportunity to win comfortably. I will say Reggie was, Reggie had his feet propped up and was about to light a cigar, and I'm like, hold on, let's just wait till it's all zeros on the clock.
I was wondering what was wrong with y'all, man. Y'all still sitting around here talking about wait for what? Yeah, we're winning this game, man. We're up by 8 points.
Well, we were winning by 11 with roughly 2.5 minutes to go.
Exactly,
2.5 minutes to go. We were up by 11,
and I'm ready to celebrate. And y'all talking about hold on, wait. But needless to say, man, you guys were right on that, man.
Unfortunately.
Holy cow.
Unfortunately. Well, before we get to all that, those that listen to this podcast probably already saw it, so we're not breaking anything new. But real quick, I just want to go over a few stats that I thought were interesting. Sam Howell was 27 for 39 for 299 yards. Couldn't get that one more yard to break 300, but 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and unfortunately 4 sacks. That's something we can circle back around. B-Rob had 18 carries for 87 yards and 2 TDs. One thing I'll note that Antonio Gibson, he didn't have a single carry until the fourth quarter. I think he only ended up with 1 carry. Speaking of Howell, something that people probably didn't notice was he threw the ball or had 10 different people catch the ball during the game. That's a lot of people. You think 2 or 3 running backs and 3 wide receivers and a tight end. Well, that's only 6. And so people off the bench were also getting involved in the passing game. And so yeah, that's kind of the simple statistics. Joey Sly was 2 of 4, missed an easy one, and then missed a 59-yarder, which I would like to throw a question mark on Rivera for attempting that because once he missed that, they basically had it at the 50-yard line. They were starting their drive from the 50-yard line. But I'll turn it over to you for any kind of simple things before we kind of dive into a play or two or a person or two and anything that you got.
No, that's good. That's good. Keep going. Everything was the stats from everybody was good. A lot of positives that came out of this game, some negatives, which we'll touch on here in a little bit. But go for it.
Yeah, I mean those are the overall stats. I pulled the stats off of ESPN, and if you look at the ESPN website, when you look at the stats over on the left-hand column, they have a running probability, right? It runs throughout the game. So minute by minute, it gives you what's the probability of Washington or the Broncos winning. When the score was 3-21 in favor of the Broncos, obviously, the Broncos had a 96.3% chance of winning at that time. Clearly, that stat means nothing. It's a matter of how the game plays out. But it just kind of caught me. It goes high and low depending on how people score, who goes ahead, and how much time is left on the clock. But the extreme of 96.3, and we came back and ended up pulling out that win was kind of a meaningless, but it was kind of caught me as something kind of funny there.
Yeah, for sure.
And like I said, go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, go ahead, Ken.
Well, I was just going to say, overall, I think I was real happy with Sam Howell. Again, we're talking about for all purposes, he's a rookie quarterback. Early on, he took a few sacks that maybe he could have kept from getting one or two of them. Later in the game, when he kind of came under pressure, he did throw the ball away a few times. So it's the learning curve on that. I like to continue to like his poise, and you can see when the line gives him time, he's going through his progressions and then very comfortably, not rushing, but very comfortably goes down to the check down person, whether that's a tight end over in the flat, whether that's a running back that releases after providing some blocking. He's very comfortable going through his progressions and going to the check down, and just, yeah, by no means a perfect game by Howell, but everything that I saw is, plenty to continue to grow with, and hopefully become the quarterback for the future. But it's way too early in the season and in his career to make that evaluation. But I continue to like what I see in Sam Howell.
Yeah, man, listen, this game still had a lot of question marks going into it for us from an offensive standpoint, right? This was essentially Sam Howell first road test. This is his third start, but the first two were home games. So there were questions about how he would be on the road. You got the opposing team fans, the pressure there, the hostile environment, if you will.
Yep.
On the road. The question was how he was going to handle. Sam has every game that he's played this season, granted it's only been 2, he's played in a way that makes you scratch your head. You question some of the things he's doing, but I have no other word to choose other than the poise. The kid continues to have and show an amazing poise in the face of adversity. Here's a situation here where he didn't play well in the first half. I mean, the offense scored 3 points in the first half. And yet he didn't seem rattled. It was just the defense continued to play and try to do their best to hold Denver offensively. And at one point, Denver had only scored 3 points in the second half, and yet Sam just continued to fight back. And Our offense scored 32 points in the second half.
Well, I want to correct you there. We were losing at halftime. We were 14-21. We were down.
At the half?
We were down.
You're right.
Midway through the second quarter, to your point, midway through the second quarter, we were losing 3-21, and then the last part of the second quarter.
You're right.
And the rest of the game scored, I think it was like an unanswered 32 points, if I'm right.
Yes. You're right. My bad, folks, for totally blowing that. You're right. It was a 7-point game at halftime. You're right. But at one point, it was a 21-3 deficit for Washington, and yet the kid did not lose his composure. He kept his poise and continued to fight and just slowly grind. I think that's a testament to two people. I think that's a testament to Eric Bieniemy, who didn't seem to get flustered and get out of character very much and just continue to try to call a great game. And then also for Sam Howell to continue to just grind this thing out. There's a thing of note here, and I have no doubt that it will be talked about. And that is his ability or his knack for holding the ball. Personally, I think it's certainly something that needs to be looked at, but I don't think it's to his detriment. The kid is holding the ball because there are times where the offensive line isn't protecting. So therefore, he is trying to extend the play. And in his efforts to extend the play, he's either getting the sack or he's getting chased down from behind. And so that could easily be he escaped the pocket and makes the play downfield. And in some cases, it's turned into a sack. And I think sacks are situational. If he's getting a sack and it's stalling the drive, that's different than if he takes a sack and it's, it takes us out of field goal range or something. And listen, no sack is good. But I think not all sacks are equal. Nonetheless, Sam has to do a better job, I think, of recognizing when those times are better than others. But for this kid to throw 39 times, 27 attempts, having a 108 passer rating, given how putrid the offense looked in the first half, again, you have nothing but to say how well this kid is going to be the more experience and the more reps he continued to get.
Right.
Against some of the better teams, you can't get down 21-3, obviously. But again, to your point that you made, this is his third start. His third start in his career. And yet, Sam's not losing us games.
Correct.
He's not losing us games. He certainly has helped. He's reasons why we're winning. I'm not going to say he's the only reason. But, man, and then the kid made some hell of throws, man. For those that watched the game, you saw the touchdown pass that he made. It was a nice pass to Terry. We saw the dime that he threw along the right sideline to John Bates. The ability to throw the ball into tight windows. I think Denver was playing a zone coverage. I cannot remember if it was Terry or Jahan Dotson. He throws the ball in there between what was essentially three defenders in there. Listen, Sam may not be our guy for 10 years. He may not be. And I'm not going to sit here and say that he is or isn't. But at this point, I asked the guy at the bar, I said, who's somewhat complaining about him, I said, listen, when the last time we've had a guy on our roster that basically you have this type of potential with? He couldn't come up with anybody.
Yeah.
He couldn't come up with anybody.
Yeah.
Other than RG3.
Well, I'd like to add to that. If in the offseason we would have drafted him with our number one pick, right? And instead of Forbes, if we just magically had Howell, and this is Howell's second start as our number one draft pick we'd be happy.
We would be happy.
Right? But we lower our. I think not you and I think there are fans, because he was a 5th round pick, lower what his potential could be or is. And it's just not the case. I had written down here, and you almost said verbatim, his mistakes during this game, and his main mistakes to me that I saw was a couple of the sacks, right? But those sacks, to your point, it directly come from him trying to make a play. He's not lost, right? He's not searching. He's holding the ball, waiting for somebody to get
he's trying to escape the pocket most of the time.
Or he's trying to step up in the pocket, or he's trying to roll and buy himself an extra, second and a half to get the ball away. And sometimes it's working for him. There's plenty of times that it is working for him, but the times that it doesn't, sometimes, that comes up to bite him. But there's players that do that for an entire career and still can become very, very successful. I think that's something that the coaching staff will work with Sam and kind of, hey, if it's not there, you got to get rid of it. But
one more thing on those sacks, Ken.
Yeah, but to me, his mistakes at this point are from being not overly aggressive, but aggressive, right? Overly aggressive, you're flinging it, and you can make the play, and you can do this and that. He's not throwing. When he throws the ball, he's not throwing into bad coverage. He's not misreading the coverage. Those are the things that sometimes can really drive a coach bad, because you look at the film and you go like, well, how did you not see this linebacker moving over or the safety coming over? He's not making those kinds of mistakes, and I just, like I said, overall, second game, third game, I really like what I'm seeing from Sam at this point.
Yeah, and just one last thing on the old Sam Howell and also his sacks, to exactly the point that you're making. His sacks are coming from trying to extend the play. It's not like he's rolling out to the left or the right and there's a defender bearing down, and instead of throwing it out of bounds, he's holding the ball. It's typically protection has broken down. He's trying to escape the pressure and to then now extend it to try to make a play downfield, and he's getting sacked. And I know it's easy to say, well, just throw it away, but it's kind of hard to throw away, and there's a defender right in your face there. And so I just think things will get better. I think the offensive line will continue to hopefully get better in protection. And so there's less of these moments where he's having to try to extend the play that in some cases result in the sacks.
And kudos, and with those issues that we're talking about, Sam Howell, he still put 35 points on the board.
Yes.
Right. And most of those, it wasn't like there was a fumble and he had a short field. Pretty much all of those were drives. Right. And so again, it's him learning. It's these repetitions. The other thing I mentioned it last week. Actually, I mentioned it during the preseason, and you can see it here again. A little bit light on the running, but that's not going to change, right? And I'm talking old Commanders from the last couple years, or even going back to the Redskins days where, you got to be 50-50 or more running. I think the amount of running that we're doing is sufficient, and keeping it honest. B-Rob had some hard runs today, and productive runs, but we're going to continue to see us throwing the ball 60-40 would be my rough guess, continued throughout the season. And the style that we're doing it, we're doing check downs, we're doing screen passes, we're doing something in the flat, we're going downfield, we're doing the mid-range passes. There's a mix of everything. And as long as we're mixing it, everything isn't a check down. Everything's a check down. We've seen that for a few years. As long as we're using the entire field in our passing game, I've got no problem with it.
Well, to your point, I don't think the issue is necessarily the percentage of run versus pass. as long as you're efficient when you run, then I don't think that the ratio presents itself to be as a bad thing. Case in point, I'm looking at the stats right now. Total rushes, we went 23 carries for 122 yards and 2 touchdowns. That was a 5.3 average. If I told you that Brian Robinson had 23 carries by himself for 122 yards, scored 2 touchdowns on a 5.3 yard average, you say he had a hell of a day. Right. So collectively, as a group, which was Brian Robinson, Curtis Samuel, Antonio Gibson, and Sam had a couple of carries himself to extend some plays. As a team, we ran 23 carries, 23 times for 122 yards. So again, the point that I want to make there is it's not necessarily how many you run or how many carries you get. It's how efficient you are with those carries.
Right.
And if you ran 23 times and you had a 2-point average, then people are going to say maybe you need to run the ball a little bit more. But in this case, we were efficient. They had a 5.3 yard per carry average, scored with them. It helped sustain some drives. It helped extend some drives. And all of a sudden, it looks like a more balanced attack today than maybe it would have in previous years. So, hey, man, you tell me a Washington team puts up 35 points, I'm going to feel pretty good about it.
Right.
And that's what they did today.
Yeah.
So kudos to Eric Bieniemy, Sam Howell, and that offense. I know Terry's numbers didn't look gaudy, but I was, talking to someone today, and I said, listen, if everyone expects our offense to be explosive because of the number of weapons we have, then no one guy is going to stand out. Terry in years past was our main guy, heading above everybody else. So his numbers looked great. But if you expect Dotson, Samuel, Gibson, Robinson, Logan Thomas, Bates. Bates, I'm missing the other guy named Cole Turner. You expect all these guys to be getting touches, then Terry's not going to get the same number of balls and have the same number of yardage that he's had in years past. He'll still be productive, but you're just not going to get those gaudy numbers that we're accustomed to have, where you have some teams just got a wide receiver one. It's just not going to happen that way. He had his moments. They were some big moments. They were moving the change type catches, and in some cases, he scored touchdowns. And I think what we saw from Terry today is probably what is going to look more so throughout the season than it has in passes where he's caught 9-10 balls in a game, 100 and something yards. I don't know that we'll see that from Terry this year.
Yeah. One thing that did concern me about this game was actually the other side of the ball. I believe it was on either 3 straight drives or 3 out of 4 drives that they scored touchdowns. Right. It was we talked about being down 3-21, and after that point, Washington D played tight. They were tough. Russell was definitely uncomfortable back there in pass protection, and he was running a lot. Running just to get away, or a few times he was running to pick up a first down or two. But I'd be interested in Del Rio. Like I said, I didn't hear post game coverage on to Del Rio of what changes did you make, and why did it take not 1 drive, not 2 drives, not why did it take 3 drives for you to get to that point of making whatever adjustments were made, because there are 3 touchdowns. One was a 2-play drive, right? I think it was like 12 seconds. They had one play.
No, that was a one play. 75 yards.
I was thinking they had a play prior to that, but even so, it was a very, very short drive. And I know their first touchdown, they just kind of drove down, and I was like, what are we doing? And sometimes there's a little bit of feeling out. And teams will score the first time, and then it becomes tough after that, as people see your blocking scheme or what you've changed up to from an offensive perspective, what they're doing to attack your defense, you notice it and you make your adjustments and you go from there. It just seemed to take a little while for Washington D to make those adjustments, but I give them credit. Once they did, they did a really good job after that point. But it was kind of a head scratcher there because I was more concerned about my defense than I was at my offense at that point.
Yeah. Man, I don't know what to make of our defense, Ken, if I'm being honest, right? We've for the last 4-5 years, we've touted the talent along the defensive line.
Right.
And they obviously have moments, stretches. And at the end of the year, from a statistic standpoint, we seem to be ranked high enough to where people go, man, the Washington defense. But when I look at the eye test, right, our defense doesn't look the same. We have moments in the game where you go, "Whoa, boy, that's the way it's supposed to work." But just throughout the game, I'm gonna, for example, I'm gonna use the hated Cowboys here for a second. You watch them last week against the Giants. Without knowing anything about how they finished last year, you looked at that defense and go, man, that's a tough defense. They couldn't run the ball. Every time Daniel Jones dropped back, somebody was in his face. They were just wrecking plays. That ultimately led to turnovers and a shutout. And you watch us, and it's like we let an Arizona team with basically a guy that been on the roster as a quarterback for 2 weeks. They were beating us. All of a sudden, a Denver team that put up 16 total points last week against the Las Vegas defense, who, by the way, isn't expected to have a better defense than we have, had 21 points at the half on the way to what was potentially could have been a 42-point game. And it's like it still has this bend but don't break look to it. And then throughout the game, there are moments where we celebrate, but the defense doesn't look like it's dominating games. We're not dictating anything to opponents. We're stopping people sometimes when we need to stop them. We're holding offenses sometimes when we need to hold them. We make a play here and there when we need to make the play. And all of those are great things if you don't have a defense that you expect to be top 5. But that's not how we're touting our defense. Our defense is touted to be wrecking offenses. Quarterbacks be afraid to play us week in and week out. And yet we allowed Denver to put up 33 points. And oh, by the way, they almost came back and could have forced overtime. Denver put up 33 points on us.
Yeah, I think we talked earlier before the season started about how Washington as a team needed to get out to a fast start, right? And from a win-loss perspective, we're 2-0, and there's nothing to complain about. But it seems like we're 2 weeks in, and the Washington defense has not started out quickly, right? And we're our most of our easy games are behind us. And I say easy. There is no easy game in the NFL, but when you look at the
games,
quality of the opponent, it primarily gets harder here going forward. Playing Buffalo and playing the Eagles are the next 2 games. If you give up a bunch of points and you get in the hole against them by a significant amount, it's going to be trouble. It is going to be trouble. So, the defense over the next couple weeks, really for the entire season, they need to be the quality of defense that we saw in the second half today. And I'll say the second half or fourth quarter last week against Arizona, we need to see that for 4 quarters. And we knew going in that we were going to have to rely on our defense as our offense is growing. And and just need them to step up and play a full game every game, and we'll be good. I think if that's the case, we'll be able to compete. Win or loss, we'll be competing throughout the season, but we can't be giving away giving leads up to begin the game every game.
Man, we can't be letting teams score 33 points on us, man. Come on.
Right.
I don't care. I don't care who we're playing. Again, I'm going to say, if you're expected to be top 5 defense, you can't be allowing teams to put up 33 points on you.
Yep.
Right. Okay. So, but I want to say this. I don't want to take away that some guys stepped up when they needed to step up. Emmanuel Forbes out here getting his hands on balls. It's just a matter of time that kid's going to start grabbing them.
He got one.
He did get one.
But
so congratulations to him for that.
2 weeks in a row, if he catches everything that's right there, he might have 3 right now.
Yeah. Right? Montez Sweat had another sack and a half game, which, to the point, he's finishing. But I cannot get out of here without mentioning the play out of the halftime. The second half with Deron Payne. Deron Payne made 3 consecutive plays that forced Denver to go 3 and out. Yep. And what I want to point out about that is every now and then you get a player that after they get their big contract, you don't hear from them much. I'm not going to say that they don't play hard and all those types of things because I don't know. But it's not uncommon that after a player gets paid a big contract, the production goes down. But between John Allen and Deron Payne, there's something about those guys, man, that even if they got paid, they're not resting on that. Right. Them boys are still playing hard. And so, again, Deron Payne had 3 consecutive plays that forced a 3 and out by Denver based on a tackle, sack for loss, and a batted pass. And, man, that kid was just ready. It was just good to see. Yeah. And I was happy for him for that reason.
Yeah, Chase Young. I think there was a couple plays where he was
the return to Chase was today.
There was a couple plays where he was over aggressive, but he definitely had a impact on today's game. I think he definitely had a sack, maybe 2 sacks.
No, he had a second half.
Yeah, and there's a couple times where he might not have gotten the sack, but he made Russell Wilson uncomfortable and made him either throw the ball away or somebody else ended up getting the sack because he had to make a move or adjustment because of Chase Young's pressure that he put on him. So overall a good game. We're happy because we win, but we still try to see and be critical of things that can be cleaned up. I know I said before the game, I was talking to some people at the sports bar, and I said, the good or bad that we saw last week in or playing against the Cardinals, a lot of those things that were on us, right? If we cleaned up the things that we were doing, that we would be much more productive. And we saw it took a little bit for some of that, right? That the defense started off slow, the offense started out slow, but once they started cleaning that up, you saw what this team can be. They can move the ball. They can score the ball defensively. They can make it tough on the quarterback. Overall, the secondary did a good job. Other than the one play, there was tight coverage on them all the time. Not a whole lot of gripe once we got into the second half. Teams are going to score. They're going to move the ball. But overall, they made it tough for Denver to do anything. So,
yeah. And the only thing that I would say left out of that is you hear when you throw Hail Mary passes, you gotta bat the ball down.
Yeah.
I man, that was crazy that they were able to score that touchdown late in the game to give themselves an opportunity to tie that ball game up and force overtime. But the defense again stepped up on that 2-point conversion, stopped it. Ball game. We're 2-0. Denver and Sean Payton and Russell Wilson 0-2. And so
there were some celebratory shots, I think, after the game, if I recall.
And we did. We had a victory Sunday moment there that we do sometimes after victory. So we did our victory shots after the game, and man, this is a position I wanted to be in. We need to be in heading into week 3 against a tough Buffalo opponent that will be coming to FedEx Field next week. So I'm excited, man. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Everything's going to taste a little bit better tomorrow. When we go to work, I may work a little harder. We'll see. I don't know. But I certainly know that my food will taste better tomorrow.
Oh yeah. A little extra zip in the step, without a doubt. And that's pretty much all that I have on this. Do you have any last comments? Anything, Rich?
That's really all I got, man. We'll be back, I guess, later this week with our pregame podcast for the Buffalo Bills.
Yep.
And we'll give you our number on that. We did not get our Denver podcast pre-podcast for the Broncos out. We apologize for that. We had some emergency situations that arose that prevented that, but we're back, y'all.
Yep.
And we're back with a Victory Sunday podcast, and we'll be back later this week for a pre-game podcast for the Buffalo Bills. So unless you got anything else, Ken, that's all I got, man.
I'm good, brother.
Nation, that was good stuff. Love it.
Peace out, knuckleheads.